Okay,
There we
cool.
go.
So hi guys. First off, right off the bat, again, for whoever happens to take a look at this first, please let us know if we have sound or if there's other weird technical things going on with it. So otherwise, unfortunately, we don't know if there's not. And we're doing this at Elmhurst, so the Wi-Fi is kind of weird and sketchy in my opinion. First off, right off the bat.
Looks like we got sound. Okay.
Then he just checked it, so I guess we are good. So yeah, I'm here with Vinny. He's my friend. I'm glad I could peer pressure him into being here. So yeah, this was another voted topic when I did that straw poll. I think I just put it in. At the time, I just generally said dealing with auditions. That's kind of vague. So there's a lot of different ways you can kind of go with it, and especially based on some of the questions we received too, which we'll go through all of them, but probably what we say and what other people ask they're a little bit different. But yeah, we hope you guys enjoy it. And then also don't be afraid to comment if you want to in our little chat thing. We like reading through those. Gives Vinny something to do while I endlessly talk the whole time, and then he can talk to you in my name. That's what you do from your phone. So I'm just gonna hop off from the beginning, kind of my perspective with this. So when I originally thought of this idea or the topic of like dealing with auditions, it kind of broke into different things for me specifically. Part of that has to do with performance anxiety, which I'm sure many of you know. And then there's the mental health part, and there's also some like social things. Also, I want to add really quick, because I know we have some non-music people that are now a part of this. We are music majors, so our stuff kind of tends to relate to that a little bit, but I will also try to include you guys in with some other things. But bear with me, we're going to talk about the music part first. So auditions, a lot of the time, it kind of ties up with school for the most part, and I think with most people, because when you audition, and that's not going to like how you feel about it specifically or like your performance, but just like the audition itself and like where you like rank, so to speak. For a lot of people, that can become more of a self-worth thing, because it's very easy to compare yourself to other people at that point, just because you have a list. You know the other people who like play your instrument, so you're kind of like comparing yourself to them. For me personally, as a freshman, I kind of had a lot of issues with that. Part of that has to do with depression and that sort of thing. I'm not going to get into that as much, just because I want to kind of try to focus on this topic. But for me, when I first auditioned here, I know that I was very anxious during the auditions. I don't remember if I cried or not during them. I wouldn't be surprised if I cried during the first one. You can ask Mike. Or Mike, if you see this, I think you'd remember better than I would. He's probably traumatized too. Yeah, I was super anxious during that first audition. I remember Chris Conway, I think, went right before me, and I could hear him, and he just like killed it. He sounded so good. And so I was immediately anxious and terrified and worried. So I didn't do that well. And after I auditioned, at least here at Elmhurst, I was in the bottom groups for everything. At least I'm pretty sure it was the bottom groups for everything. My combo is pretty bad. Sorry if you're in my combo. I like all you guys too, but we were pretty bad. Same with like the other stuff too. I was in like all the lowest level groups. And for me, that definitely became a self-worth thing to try to tongue twister. Because again, it's very easy to compare yourself to like everyone around you and everything that's going on. And try not to say so much. So at least for me with that, definitely the auditions in the music part, at least when I started off as a freshman, that definitely affected my depression specifically, and made me very stressed out just because I was constantly comparing myself to other people and like worrying about things. And that was also something that I kind of tried to work on with my therapist a little bit, but we'll get back to that. later. And the other big key thing with that too, at least for me with auditions, is it kind of made me like freaked out by everyone else, especially like with the results, because I had this weird thing in my head that I couldn't be friends with like other musicians, or like I wasn't good enough to like be friends with them, which again is ridiculous. You pick your friends based on who you like and like their personalities and that sort of thing. So as a side note for anyone, freshmen that may not have auditioned, don't let whatever your results were, don't let them stop you from forming relationships with other people, because some of the best friends that like I made when I was a freshman, some of them were like a few years older than me, or like way above me. Same thing now, you know. Again, people just form relationships with the people that they like.
Yeah.
So if you are kind of going through that, or you're in a negative place with that, try not to let that affect like your social life, because what you want to do musically and what you want to do socially are two different things. So try not to like put them together. The other key point with that, again, this is focusing on when I was a freshman. Even though I was very unhappy with my audition results as a freshman, I still received a lot of support from like my professors and other music friend people like Vinny. Because again, you know, people don't see that. What people tend to notice the most is when you like work hard and you improve. And I'm sure everybody can agree with all their professors or teachers for the most part have like always supported you. Or when I decided, I remember when I was talking to Mike for the first time, and other professors too, about whether or not I want to go into music ed or jazz studies. They're both good majors depending on what you want to do. Mike never like dismissed me or said that I shouldn't go into jazz studies or do like performance. Same with Frank and like Doug. None of them ever laughed and like thought that was like a bad idea. So I always received a lot of support. Hopefully you're in a situation where you also receive support from professors, because I don't know, I believe that most teachers believe in their students and they want their students to do well and to succeed. And again, when you work hard, other people kind of notice that. So my freshman year, auditions were very self-worth based. It negatively affected my mental health. And then over the years, I kind of moved up from like that bottom part. So like my freshman year, I was at like the lowest end. My sophomore year, I moved up a little bit higher. As far as the electric guitar ensembles go, I was in collective. And then my junior year, I got into Gretsch, which is like the top group during my second semester. And then this final year, I made Gretsch and I made jazz band callbacks, which I didn't think would ever happen. So for me personally, I just kind of view it as a way of like always seeing yourself improve. So even if you're unhappy, as long as you just like keep working hard, you will improve, in my opinion, at least. And that's definitely the most important thing. So I've kind of learned to be satisfied with that growth. I've also noticed, at least with like this year and like the last audition, I would say that was the first one that I've really had where it definitely wasn't attached to like my self-worth at all, like with the auditions. Like I was happy enough just to like remain in Gretsch, because that's what I wanted to do. I was more delighted to like get called back. I didn't make the jazz band stuff, which I mean that's fine. But I was still like super pleased. I don't know if you want to throw in.
Yeah, I mean, I just think like all of the thing the thing that I've kind of learned in the audition process, as someone who was also like super anxious about it, especially my first couple times doing it, it's kind of like, I think it's the most nerve-wracking the first time you do it for sure, because it's like the first impression you kind of give to everyone. You always, of course, you know, whether you're talking about music or like a job interview or whatever you do, and you want your first impression. Everyone wants to have a good first impression. You know, no one walks into it and is like, maybe if I have a mediocre first impression, like that'll be good. Everyone wants to, and so people can put pressure on themselves, you know. But I don't necessarily think putting pressure on yourself is always a bad thing, because that's kind of, I think, the idea behind like grades in school, because people want to have some kind of mark to represent how they're doing, and it's harder to do that with music for sure, because it's such a subjective thing. But I think a really good way to sort of like track your progress, and I talked about this like probably on other podcasts we've done, is just like record yourself periodically. and don't even focus on like how you sound either time, but just focus on the changes you hear in between the two, like separate recordings. Maybe one is recorded like at a certain time, and then the next one is 3 months later. You know, you can't necessarily control the way you play, but you can control the changes you make towards whatever improvement you want to make. And it's really easy to lose sight of that as like yourself who's not listening to recordings.
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
I'm just figuring out technology, guys. How do I go back?
Click on that. Maybe click on the 4.
I'm scared. I don't want it.
Yeah.
We're just, Nate, I love you, but we're stuck on your comment, and I don't know how to return. I think it's just loading.
Maybe it's like this thing then.
That's not it.
Okay.
No, we're stuck on like the replying to Nate thread.
But anyway,
just keep talking.
Yeah, I just think it's good to have like tangible evidence of yourself improving and growing, because the things you can't control are like where you start off, because everyone starts off at a different level. And when I say start off, I guess I'm thinking mostly about like auditions here, because it's pretty arbitrary what kind of resources you have access to, like wherever you grow up, go to high school, what kind of musicians you're like surrounded by, what kind of live music you're able to see and stuff. So it's all very arbitrary, but the thing you can't control is the growth you do have once you to a certain point. And I don't really think there's a limit to that growth. It's just about work, and also a very important part to like making everything work is self-love without a question, because you have to believe that the time you're investing is for a good purpose. And if you don't believe that, then it's really not even worth it. If you're doing it to please someone else or to do it to just like try to fit in with a social crowd, I don't think those are the right reasons. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just like a matter of really being self-understanding and knowing what your goals and aspirations are. And once you have an understanding of where you're at and where you want to be, it's just a matter of taking the measures to get to that point, And that's way easier said than done, of course.
Yeah.
But experience, I think, is the thing that like helps with that, is just going through scary stuff a lot, for lack of like a better
Sorry, I'm
phrasing.
making faces.
No, it's fine. But
us jazz folk are facial expressive people.
What do we got here?
Okay, have no worries, guys. I have your comments because I muted the video and I have it on my phone.
What do we got?
So you can like scroll through it. Isaiah was saying things at you.
And he said it.
You can,
Hello,
like, scroll
Isaiah.
through
Music is a subjective. Yes, I would agree, Isaiah. Music is a very subjective thing. I also think this is not, I don't know how much this relates, but one thing that just kind of is a pet peeve of mine, I don't like hearing people like crap on certain types of music or whatever someone else listens to. I sometimes do it as like a joke with people. I think everyone does, just to like tease people, but I really like think someone like, the music someone likes is very connected to like their experiences in their own life, and to sort of make fun of that and laugh at that is sort of just like laughing at their own like nostalgia. So I think that's kind of a lame thing to do. I'm not even saying I've seen people do that, but that's just like a little side comment. That's the thing with music being so subjective, is that there's literally no right way for it to be played, or no better style or play, really. It's so subjective, and I think that's the beauty of it, because there's no way of saying like you can't quantify what is more like prolific about two different musical things. You know what I mean? It's just a matter of opinion. And when you can sort of come to terms with that too, that I think that helps with personal struggles with like self-confidence and performing, because when you're in an experience that you're nervous about, I think really all you can do is experience and deal with stressful things and learn how you deal with those sort of on the fly. It's kind of an important part of the musical thing. So I think the more chances you get to be in the spotlight or have some type of high pressure situation, those are good for training yourself to trust your instincts and like respond. The other thing is an audition, like I think it's better to prepare for your audition just in terms of like how you go about daily practice and such, and not just like play the sheet music really well for that audition, because you'll find better awards. And even if you have an off day, I think you'll play better if you're just focusing on like bettering your craft as a whole, instead of like, I got to get ready for this audition. Like the audition's cool, but mostly bettering the craft in the way that you see fit, I think is the more satisfying thing to do for sure. So
Yeah.
that's kind of where I stand on it. Just like the more experiences you have with, like for me, like I learn all the time from just screwing up and sounding like an idiot. You know what I mean? And like it's true. You know, it's like you
I wasn't laughing at what you said. I was laughing that you were like.
No, it's true. It's just like people make fools of themselves, and it's not even like making a fool of yourself. I shouldn't even use that phrase because there's nothing wrong with it. But I think you have to have the confidence for going for really big risks to make, first off, huge mistakes, and then you like experience that and you learn that life went on when that happened. And no one was really mad at anyone. And as long as you're engaged and focused on what you're doing, I think like just the proof of going through those before and those terrifying experiences, and I do use the word terrifying because for some people like the performance anxiety is a really true thing.
That's more.
But like experiencing that and seeing that you can survive that and play through that, I think is really sort of an invaluable thing that you can't really get from any other practice, or like any type of amount of practice can't really teach you that, is what I would say.
Yeah, no, for sure. I know a lot of things you said, at least even for preparing like audition music too. Like when I was going into auditions for this year, like a lot of what I had been working on over summer was what I was applying to like the tunes that we always do. So I same two every year, you know. Yeah, so I was like trying to focus really hard on like incorporating that. It's always like a struggle with practicing too, because there's always like more things you have to like work on. So, like this summer I was shedding like a lot of like fourths related things. This semester started, I haven't like I haven't worked on any of that. Hey, you're gonna cause a rift in this time-space continuum. The past thing happening. So yeah, I agree with that too. Like trying to apply. Yeah, and then Vinny was kind of talking about too, putting yourself in terrifying situations. I'm gonna kind of go into that a little bit as well, from a different perspective and kind of this summer. So I know, and a lot of people talked about this too, and like I definitely struggled with this. It was way worse when I was a freshman for sure. But again, like as a musician, most of the time, you know, you get really nervous and like afraid and like anxious when you play. For me specifically, well, obviously I want to do well now. That hasn't changed. Everyone wants to do well. But when I will say like in like that darker place, like that thought was there. But it was also related to, I think when you play, you want other people to like you, or you want other musicians to like you. And there's always like the thought I have too of like I want other people like I want Vinny to like want to play with me. Hopefully one day, the dream.
Oh my goodness.
Get an invite, have Vinny be like, "Will you play tunes
that's when you know
with me?"
you've made it.
That's when you know. But the problem with that is like all that stuff is good, and I think it's like normal for people to like want that stuff. You know, the problem is when you start relating that like performance thing to, if I don't do well, then I'm not gonna have friends and people aren't gonna like me, because that really doesn't have anything to do with it. Like
no.
I've fucked up and done stupid things enough times. Like we were both in Gretsch rehearsal, like on that last tune I was like playing in the wrong key over one of the chords. I was like, why doesn't this sound right? And I didn't figure it out until after I stopped playing. I just a half step off and never resulted.
It's cool.
This gave Mike a panicked look. I'm like, what's happening? So, you know, so like people sound like you're gonna sound bad and you're gonna do stupid things. It depends on how you deal with it though too. Because again, it is hard. When I was a freshman and I wasn't good at dealing with that stuff, like that stuff would just like hang over me like all the time. And again, that's like a harder thing. Like we can't really just tell you to like snap out of it, or like that it's like flicking a switch. So some of that it can be a mix of things. Like again, when I was a freshman and things were really bad, one of the things my therapist suggested to me, because again, it was like the performances that would just like stress me out like so much to the point where I would pretty much every time after I played, like I'd end up like self-harming just because that was how I dealt with it. And one of her suggestions was maybe you shouldn't like go do jam sessions anymore. And it wasn't that anyone was mean, because like everyone is super sweet here in my opinion. But for me, like personally and mentally, I just wasn't handling things well. So eventually I followed her advice, followed the professional's advice, and I stopped going for a while, and it helped a lot. And working on like mentality and perspective, like over summer, like helped a lot, like that year, I think. And again, it's an overtime thing, and if you do have like a lot of issues with that, again, I recommend like talking to a therapist. And it might take a long time. Like for me, getting to a place where I'm not like that anymore, like that was a solid like 3-year journey of like just working things out. So yeah, that's my suggestion with that. You don't necessarily have to do it, but I recommend it. Talking to a therapist can help with that, especially if you're hurting yourself.
Yeah, I honestly think in regards to that, just like talking to any mental health professional, or even if that's not feasible for whatever reason, just some friend or family member that you trust and can feel like you'll get like unbiased advice from. I think like honesty is very important, whether you're on the receiving end or the giving end of advice in that. And of course, you don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but I think a therapist or someone will not sugarcoat anything. They'll tell you, what might need work in your life or what personal issues, they observe to be things that are holding you back. And I think that's really good information to get from someone who. It's sometimes good to go to someone who doesn't even like know you as a friend, because they can sort of make a more quantitative observation about like whatever mental health debilitation or whatever you might be dealing with. And like we were talking about not putting labels on things earlier, but sometimes I think it's okay if you can get some kind of label on something, not necessarily, but if you can identify the problem and have sort of an understanding of it without bearing the weight of like the label of it. If you can just identify it, you can fix it, or at least work on fixing it. I'd say fix it like it's a very simple thing, and we of course know it's not, but like it's something you can work towards repairing or improving on, so I think, but like the bottom line is when you're talking about music, I think a lot of people use music as an escape from those type of issues, and I think that's great. And like a lot of awesome music has been written as a result of that, but I also think it can't always be that way, or else you're going to burn out. For example, just like if someone trying to like become a professional musician full-time gigging or whatever, if they're just going to take every last gig they're offered for the sake of like saying I'm super booked with gigs and like I'm not even happy, I think that is a dangerous path to go down sometimes. I mean, like not everyone has the luxury to pick and choose like what they're going to play, but I think at the end of the day, you have to like prioritize your own personal happiness and mental health. And if you don't have those things in order, then I don't think music can really be of help and all the time. I think it's okay to like take a step away to better yourself personally before you return to the music. And then I think music can then like take your quality of life way higher once you've done some sort of self investigation and like exploration about what kind of demons are you dealing with, or what are you struggling with right now. Take a step away from the music altogether, even if it's for like a week or two. I really don't think that's an adverse thing to do. If you're trying to like improve quickly, obviously you need to practice more frequently, but like in the grand scheme of things, don't be afraid to take some time off to take care of yourself, because that's really important. There's sort of like, I remember Frank Portalee's talking about that idea of like there's all this glory for like soldiers like dying in battle or whatever, like metaphorically speaking, just meaning like working and working and working until you just can't do it anymore. And I think there is a lot of glorification for like overworking and stuff like that, and I think that can have a negative effect. No,
I don't know why I said no. It's like no. I'm so aware of my filler words at this stage. still just as bad with it. Oh gosh darn it, I'm like, why did I just put that word in there? I'm like, dang it. See, there's an What did I want to add with what Vinny said? Yeah, you know, take time off when you need to. It doesn't mean like you have to like stop or like it's a forever thing. Sometimes if every time you go to a jam session it's like a super negative experience, and I'm talking like mentally, where like for days after it like you're really depressed, and it's like, and you know like you're not in a good place, and it's like, okay, and maybe for like a while like that's not something you do. That doesn't mean like necessarily like should like stop practicing or like that sort of thing, unless if that ties in with it somehow, I guess. Then maybe you want to address that. But I mean, at least for me, I had to take a break from some of the performance things just because it was like such a self-worth thing. And again, I'm glad that I did. So I liked that quote that you said from Frank too.
Yeah, I don't even remember the exact quote, but it's something
Yes, he has a lot of good quotes. Yeah. I kind of, that like just what you said with that like hard work, that's really relating to my year right now. I don't know if I want to talk about that yet or not. I won't talk about that yet. I think maybe after I finish this kind of like plot point. So we kind of talked a little bit about like taking care of yourself, but again, I think there's also that other side too. And again, this is if you're not in a bad place mentally. If you're in a bad place mentally, then you probably shouldn't do what I'm about to tell you, because it's just going to make you feel worse. So for me, kind of with this summer, so to speak, especially going into the summer for this year, I got really tired of being afraid to play. And I think it's normal to be anxious, but I just got fed up. Like, I didn't want to have it. You guys know what I mean. Like, your ensemble director puts that chart down in front of you, and you're like, I can't sight read this. Or, like, I don't know if it's sight reading, if it's something like that. For Gretsch, we have weird chord changes. I'm not that great at soloing in a fusion style, as everyone in Gretsch is probably aware of at this point. But don't me. But yeah, I got tired of like, not even like necessarily like trying and like being bad at it, but I got tired of, I guess, like being depressed like afterwards, or being like so anxious I like didn't want to like solo on it, and like being scared of that. So I kind of like went into the summer wanting to get rid of that. And this kind of goes in with like the anxiety thing. Is I guess at some point, again, this is if you're not in a bad place mentally. If you're in a bad place mentally, then you have to take care of that first. But at some point, with like all the anxiety and like self-worth and like getting down on yourself, at some point you just kind of have to like get over yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
Because people, to a certain extent, people really don't care. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but most people don't remember note from note like the solos that you played. They might remember specific parts, or if it's like a really emotional solo, or if you're able to give a really sassy attitude during it, you know. And again, I want to reiterate, if you're in a bad place, I've said it a few times, like if you're in a really bad place, I'm not telling you to get over yourself, because again, you have to like deal with those other things first. But at some point, you just got to be tired of like feeling that way. And at least for me, that's kind of where I'm at. I've kind of just told myself that I have to get over myself. And that doesn't mean like I don't get like upset with performances. Like if I like really mess something up, especially if it's like a public thing, like jam sessions, like I'm fully aware that I will sulk for a little bit. I allow myself to sulk for a few days to myself. And be like that.
I think it totally like depends on how you. Myself. It depends on how you define the word sulk, because like
it's not like over the top. Yeah. I'm just like ticked at myself, you know.
I think like if you reflect on
it's not like
negative
a bad
about
type.
The experience, it's a very positive thing in the long run, because you're gonna, like I said, it's just one of those negative experiences you add to your belt, and the more of those you amass, the more you're prepared to like combat whatever comes in front of you. So like for example, I used to do a couple like really weird gigs like that were pretty regularly, and there were a few times where like shit just crashed and burned, like, and we got through that and survived and saw that no one really cared too much. And life also went on. No one's head exploded or anything like that.
Yeah.
No one was even really too mad at each other, but just like very bizarre situations with very unforeseen circumstances rise up. And I think like for me, that's the biggest thing that's helped me feel more confident, I guess, in walking into any musical situation. But it's also just a matter of like having an understanding of what your goals are. Maybe someone only wants to play a certain idiom of music, or like they're in like a cover band or something like that, and that's their thing. As long as you have a pretty sound like self-understanding of what you want to do and what your goals are, I think that is a good first step to like set up good practice habits. But before you can do any of that, like going back to everything we've been saying, you have to make sure that you've taken care of yourself so that
Yeah, because if you're in a bad place mentally, like that has to be addressed first. Like, but once if you're not like harming yourself, and I mean, you yourself know that, I think, know best the definition of that. Again, you just kind of, it sounds bad, but you just kind of have to get over yourself with that. It was like Vinny was saying, like this summer, like I decided I would just do things that, kind of made me nervous. And I'm going to go through some of them a little bit now. So one of my things is I haven't gone to like Chicago jam sessions. So I decided this summer, like I would start doing that at least a little bit. I go to the nice ones. People are nice. That's one of my barriers. I'll get over it eventually. I'm okay with taking my time. I know how I work. But yeah, this summer I started going to, and I'll plug them. If you're looking for a good first jam session, I recommend hitting up Phyllis's Musical Inn. John Rarick runs it. Kenny plays in it, and so does Tom Cadera. They're all good people. The saxophone player's name is Alex. I can't say your last name. I know it starts with a K, but he's also a really nice person. I've only had positive experiences there from them, and believe me, I've royally fucked up before, especially that first one. Oh my God, it's so bad, but it's okay. It's great. See, I can laugh about it now.
Yeah, the thing I've noticed at like jams in general, and I haven't like, I'm not like the expert on jams by any means, but just in my own personal experience, most of the musicians worth like interacting with at all or talking to, or whose attention I would want to command with my own playing, like most of them are in nature, like from a similar thread. And what I mean by that is they understand like all the anxiety and stuff that goes into wanting to better yourself as a musician and stuff, just because they've gone through the same obstacles or similar ones. And I think like all of my personal favorite teachers and like musicians I look up to in this area have that sense of empathy for like aspiring musicians, and I feel like a lot of people of those type of people go to those jams, so that's a good thing to like foster inspiration and also just kind of prove to yourself like, yeah, I've heard some scary things about these jam sessions, but a lot of it is like tall tales, and a lot of the people there are only looking to give you valuable experience and just like be chill. And some people understand their own sort of power over other people, especially a lot of musicians, I think. And like I said, I think a lot of musicians are really cool if you approach them with like an open mind. And
sorry, I don't want to cut you off.
No, that's pretty much it.
Going to the jam sessions is a good thing. And again, it's okay to start off with like a nice one. I recommend that. They're all cool people. And like I went with friends, like the first time I went with like Vinny and like TJ and stuff. And then after that, I mean, I was upset with the way I sounded, but again, like you have to keep making yourself go back because you have to experience those anxieties to like kind of get over them. And again, everyone messes up. Like I've had all people like say like, I know this when like this person like messed up, or everyone has experiences like that where they get really anxious.
Or like anxiety aside, it just happens sometimes. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
that's true. It's like, what's happening?
definitely.
Happens. So yeah, and then at least for me, that was kind of the one that I went to specifically over summer. Vinny and TJ then were both gone for a little while. I went without them though, you know. Usually I try to get someone to come with me, but I'm also at the point now, at least for that specific one, that I would go to by myself if I couldn't find anyone, just because again I want to play.
That's progress though, you know what I mean?
Yeah. If it was a different session though, then if I go to a new session, then I'd probably want some homies with me. And again, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No, I think it's a good way to sort of make it more like comforting in a way. And like I said, you don't want to be too comfortable either, because that's when you sort of let yourself have some sort of lapse of judgment or things like that. But it is a little comforting, I think, and helpful to have just people there who are like, yo, go up there, you know.
Yeah, and supportive.
I'll use you as an example. Like we at the gym, like we're always like, Amy, when you're gonna get up here and play? And it's just like little things like that too. If you're just willing to give someone a little nudge, like, hey, I know you're capable of doing great things, so why don't we try?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So yeah, you gotta be supportive. And then also specifically with that, I might go into the social things later, I think. Yeah, I'll go into the social things later. What I will say with that too, because you touched on musicians and kind of different types, I personally have yet to have a poor experience with another musician or jazz musician. Everyone's always been sweet to me, even when I didn't like how I played or done bad things. And this is at the more public jam sessions too. I've only had people be supportive towards me, you know. So that's kind of my thing. I've yet to be, I guess, like actually vibed by someone. I'm sure it'll happen at some point, but maybe I also display an air of panic. So people are like, oh, I'll be nice to that person.
Well, I just think like I was saying earlier, musicians are really sensitive to at least like I think musicians worth working with and worth associating with are really sensitive to other people's feelings, and like that totally is applicable to music to a degree. Like, you know, people have certain levels of like intuition with just like knowing what someone else is going to play, but also that it, like when you strip away all the music aspects of it, I think that's very valid just on like a personal level. A lot of musicians just have a good amount of empathy. Just it's kind of the nature of the profession. To make it, you kind of have to have been exposed to people that are like role models that have a lot of empathy, and then you kind of pass the torch, I feel like, by doing that yourself.
Yeah. Okay.
I think.
Oh, sorry.
No.
If you have more, do you have more to add?
No.
I was going to tell you to mess around with the comments. Because
Yes.
I know people have been making more. My phone froze, so I don't know what's happening with that. So if you have better connection, then you can mess around with it. What do I wish to? All these like good topics, I could go in different routes. I'm going to continue on with kind of that, again, same vein of things that I was kind of doing a little bit. I won't name this professor, but there's another teacher who I was kind of intimidated by that I took some lessons with over summer. Super nice guy. I love him. He's great. But I was also kind of scared a little bit of him just because, like, I'm really bad at fusion playing and he's a really good fusion player. And I'm, like, aware that I'm not that good at it. I don't shed it. I just don't shed it enough. I need to maybe prioritize it some more. But yeah, he's super sweet and he's always been really supportive of me. But I remember one of the things he said, he likes that I do like these things, like the mental health stuff. And I remember one of the things he said to me during our lesson. He's like, I know that, he's like, I love the fact that you do mental health stuff and I support it. And he's like, and I know you're really sensitive and you deal with other things and you keep pushing yourself. And he's just like, but you got to cut like that sensitive crap out of your playing. And he's just like, you have to own it when you go and play. So yeah, and I don't mean that in a bad thing. Like, I think that's kind of like a good way to think. Not necessarily, again, being mean to like other people or like stuff, but just having like the confidence just to play at all and not be terrified just to like take a solo. Like one of the quotes I remember he said was another musician he worked with told him one night after he like was shredding on something, he was just like, man, you sound like you're kicking down doors, like when you play or when you're like soloing. And for him, it's a very therapeutic thing. So yeah, it's like trying to change that mentality, you know, where like it should be fun to like solo, even if like when you first do it, you know, it's in a weird time signature, or you're like, what chord is this? You know, and like that's okay. It's okay not to know. When I was in Gretsch like last semester, I was just like so stressed out about all that. Like I didn't want to solo on any of it just because it was so different from like standard jazz or like straight ahead jazz that I was like used to. So that was like terrifying to me. And now like this year, I'm like, well, I want to get better, so I'm like, I have to play over it. And sometimes I ask Mike too, for songs if I haven't soloed on them and I know they're going to be hard, I ask him to let me be solo, take a course on them. And awesome. During Gretsch, and again, we're both aware like I might never get it together for like an actual like performance, so I might not like be playing it during the performance per se.
I think that's I think I would call that an actual performance. That's
okay, whatever. But
I think it's an opportunity.
Yeah. But I think it's like good to do that, like just to like get the opportunity to, because sometimes for some of that fusion stuff, there's not always like recordings that you can do that like work well, and you just need the like experience of playing with other people. Like for our exit famine sonnet, it's not necessarily like it's in 4/4, but it's like 5-bar phrases. So like even that like throws me off because I'm not used to like doing that at all. So if you're watching this, I was thinking about asking you to let me take a course on it next rehearsal. So if we played that, I was going to ask you today, but then we can play it.
And this is a public request for a solo.
I know, just one chorus.
Does that ever happen? You think? In the
public request. Let me play on the unknown tune.
Hashtag let Amy play.
You can't do it from there. It's frozen. That'll be just Nate's reply. It's not going to be good. I'm going to lose the form, most likely. That'll definitely happen. I'll probably get confused on the 5-bar phrases, but I still want to do it. I'll work on it. If you do see this, though, I'll try to work on it this weekend, so it's not horrible. But yeah, so it's like, it's being like happy about that and just like taking the chance. And it's okay. Like I'm okay with the fact of like knowing that, yeah, it's not going to be good, but I need to like just keep doing it until like it gets better. And that's the only way. And you should be happy about that. You should be happy about the process, you know? Because that's all that matters. So yeah, I really like that quote of like sounding like you're kicking down doors. And I think everyone has those moments, you know, where it's like you're not worried about like the stress and like the panic and like the anxiety or anything like that, you know, or you just kind of like push that away. So I really like that quote. Really like that professor. He's great. And then the other things, yeah, and also along with that, again, I was like trying to study fusion. And, you know, taking lessons with someone that I wasn't as comfortable with as other people that I've known for like years or that I've studied with, you know. He was someone else that I was reaching out to. Super cool guy, though. He's great. And then other things, too. This doesn't necessarily have to do with performances, but I think some people, I don't know. I guess I was talking to one of my other friends about this. Sometimes you get kind of in this weird like head place, I think, with hustling gigs or like wanting to play. Because I think some people get in the place where it's like, oh, other people like don't want to like play with me, or it becomes like a self-worth thing for like how much you're gigging and that sort of thing. And one of the things like Frank told me, because I wanted to play more and I felt like I wasn't playing enough. And I think he like mentioned just in passing in an email, he's like, maybe you should try hustling your own gigs or starting a jam session. He's like, you might find that you have like a talent for it. And like sometimes your initial thought, or like mine in the past, would have been like, oh, I can't do that. Like no one would ever like want me to do that. Or like I'm not good enough to do that, like that sort of thing. So I don't know, like this summer I was just like, I'm going to do that. Because again, it's gotten to the point where just in my life generally, I was just like so unhappy and just trying to like figure things out, you know. As Vinny knows, I've been trying to do things, you know. And honestly, I just relied on the fact that I should just go for it, and if I get something, I should just ask my friends to play with me, and I should just trust in the fact that that they haven't been lying to me for years when they said that I sounded good, and that they'd like want to play with me if I did do stuff like that. I know it kind of varies too, depending on your instrument. Some people get lucky, or they get a lot of people who like call them to like do things. But sometimes you don't always have that, and you just kind of have to reach out on your own. And I think that can be a good experience too, because I'm a very socially anxious person, so I'm kind of scared of talking to strangers. So far, all of mine I've done like through email, because I'm like, oh God, I can't call anyone.
I get that. I hate phone calls.
But I'm getting to the point where I'm gonna call people. I'm gonna be brave. Yeah, I think just like a good strategy with that is like, I don't know, just pretend like you're someone else, you know, or you're like not you, I guess. It's a weird thing to like kind of think, but that's like what I do a little bit. It's like a weird perspective, but.
I remember one thing, I don't know if you were at this masterclass, but when Adam Larson was here the last time, he was talking about how he goes about like doing promotion and stuff. And he said he'll send like 100-something emails a day and maybe get like, I don't want to misquote the numbers, but it's something like maybe like 1 or 2 replies from those.
Mm-hmm.
And like he books, you know, like lengthy tours with multiple shows like throughout the country. So just thinking about all the effort put into like emails and stuff like that, which is totally unrelated to like running your scales or whatever, like technical maintenance of your instrument, whatever. That's like a whole other factor too, that if someone feels like everyone also has their strengths, you know, so like if someone feels like they're not adequate or whatever as a musician, which again is, there's no definition for that because I don't believe that's true, but if someone feels that way and feels more inclined to like want to book gigs and like be someone who can like really make stuff happen in terms of like the business side of things, that's like just as important depending on what your goals are, you know what I mean? If you're like trying to make a group grow to prominence or something, knowing someone who knows how to talk to people and like, you know, just get friendly with everyone, and there are just people who have a certain ability to do that, I think, more naturally than others. But then there are also people who really thrive in the musical aspect of things, and then when it comes to like the personal side of like the business affairs and stuff, that's their sort of kryptonite or whatever you want to think of it as. You know, it's something that holds them up. So I think there's other things to be thinking about other than just playing your instrument. It's just like how you carry yourself and like going to those places. Maybe you do a face-to-face, like you go inside a restaurant, you know, you can speak to the manager directly, stuff like that, which is scarier, but I think those are other things that are like important ingredients to the whole thing if you're just trying to do the like freelance music thing, you know?
Yeah. So I want to make sure to collect my thoughts and touch on everything.
Also, I'm probably gonna have to bounce in about 10 to 15.
Oh yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Yeah, so along with that, so I've been working on that. I remember when I was a sophomore, like I remember Mike said that I should like be like getting my own things, or he thought it would be good for me to be like in charge of like my own projects and like that sort of thing. At the time, my response was no one would want to play with me, so I put it off somewhere else to think about at a later date, which is now, I guess. But yeah, that definitely goes along with it, you know, being in charge of things, you know, and trying to like work on things and work on like arranging like normal tunes, because there's that part of me that like I don't want to just like have to like read things or like play things straight ahead, or I actually like want to put effort into it, and that's more time if you want to like get into that, you know. I will keep it moving just because again you said you had to go. And what time specifically?
Probably like 6:15 or so.
Okay. I will very quickly just like talk through all this then. And then we had some questions from you guys and we'll do that. So yeah, along with that though too, with like the hustling things, I've started to be more public on Facebook and media about it. Didn't want to because I'm scared of my musical colleagues, I don't know, seeing it, having evidence, having blackmail.
Amy hustles.
And then, because originally I confused everyone with like YouTube videos because I have it under my middle name, because I didn't want anyone to see it. But then TJ convinced me to post it when we were out drinking. So there went that.
That always leads to great decisions.
Yep. So I was just like, well, guess we're committed now. Yeah, and I've only gotten like positive feedback from it, even if I'm not necessarily happy with it, but it's fine. So yeah, along with all that, just controlling negative mentalities better. I think it's okay if you're really upset about something. I think it's okay just to like give yourself a little bit of time, but you should also reflect on it too for why you got upset,
Yeah.
what you can learn from it.
You got to take a step away from the heat of the moment all the time, because it's just a really important step, I think, at least in my opinion.
I try to always be aware, just with situations too, just because I do have depression. I kind of struggle with that sort of things. Like I always think about, for me, I'm at the point where I notice when I'm like depressed, and it can be because something like triggered it and I've just been super stressed out and that just sets everything off. Or sometimes I just notice in like the background or inside of me, like there's this really unhappy feeling that's always going on. So I'm much more like aware, and usually I'm trying to figure out why all the time now. So the only other thing that I'll kind of add in, especially with the jam session stuff, this went along with that, if we can retreat back in that direction. For me, I've noticed when I ball up inside of myself, that makes everything worse. So if I go to like jam sessions and I like actively decide not to be social, like if you're nervous or scared and you decide you're just like not going to talk to anyone, that was one of the reasons why my first jam session was terrible, or went terrible for me, because I just like sat with anxiety for an hour because I wanted to catch the house set. After that though, and Kenny made some suggestions to me too. He's like, maybe you should try talking to people. He's great. I love Kenny. But I'm also aware of that too, because I know for a fact, like me personally, I know I'm a social person, and like that depressed like anxiety, you know, like that's not who I am. And I'm a social person that wants a community. Like I want to play with other people, but the way you get to that is you have to be willing to like reach out and take the first step. And a lot of the times I get people too, or I've had other people talk to me about kind of like their mental health stuff, or they feel like no one's there for them, or they like don't hang out. And it can be hard because sometimes you get fed up of always being the planner person or stuff like that. But I always tell people you have to reach out. Like it's not just with whatever you're trying to do in your life, it's not going to happen if you're not the person reaching out trying to make it happen. So you have to.
Well, that's the only way you can control whether it happens.
If you don't put the effort in, it's not going to happen. And that can be with social things, or like exercising, or just whatever.
Yeah, literally anything in life. Fill in the blank.
Or like music, or like
same
gigs.
Sure,
yeah. So you just have to do it, I guess. So that was definitely like my opinion with that. And like since then, at least with that specific jam session community, for me it's been very positive. And I feel very supportive there. I like hanging out with those guys, and for me it's become like a community. I still get mad at myself if I don't do something that I like, but that's fine, I get over it. So yeah, that was the really quick community part. We got questions from people. I don't know if any of you have been commenting, because
no, we haven't had any comments as of late.
Yeah, I don't understand. We're buffering super hardcore. I don't know if there's anything that you wanted to say specifically about some of these.
Yeah, let me look at a couple of them.
I could kind of just read off.
Yeah.
Some of them, don't say anyone's name because I didn't.
For sure.
Some of them aren't necessarily anxiety related. Some of them are like, how do I prepare for an audition, which is also cool stuff. But I wasn't exactly what I was going for. I think I also left. No, I think I have any of them. There should be 4. I will start with, some people just had like stories. I'll go back to that other guy's. That's very long. So just really quickly, we'll kind of read through this fast. This person said, my thought, and this is all in relation to auditions, my thought is that everyone is freaked out leading up to and going into the audition. What about the part where you sit and wait for results? There's nothing you can do at that point, and it really messes with me. I feel that. Last week I was super stressed out, and I got triggered by like a test. And then I was just like in panic mode for like 3 days, and it was like a terrible 3 days because I was dealing with like other stuff too, and I sobbed for like a day straight and I cried so much I gave myself like a headache. Again, there's all this other stuff going on too. I'm talking fast. You don't necessarily have to interject. I guess with that is, I don't know. What's done is done. Find things that make yourself feel good. It's hard to just snap yourself out of a negative mentality. Sometimes getting sleep as a break can help. I work out. Exercise helps me a lot. Some people take baths. You have to figure out specifically and personally what works best for you, because I honestly believe it's different for everyone. I have people who love yoga and meditating, and I've never gotten into any of that, but I hear it's a good thing. Was there any that you wanted to attack? You don't necessarily have to answer that
with regards to like sitting and waiting for results, it's kind of hard to, I think like for some people, the understanding that there's stuff you can't control is really nerve-wracking. And then for other people, there's a lot of peace in mind in that. And I think it's just a matter of being able to see it from a certain perspective, because I don't know, like when there's something you can't control, you come to an understanding sometimes like, you know, what is worrying doing for me right now? And that's like a very dismissive way to just say like, oh, just then don't worry then. You know, that's an impossible thing to just do, but it's more of something to sort of try to like inform yourself. And you can try to use, you know, like logic to convince yourself of that your worries are not true. Just, you know, think like, even if you think of the worst case scenario, like I'm not going to make this ensemble or I don't make this band.
That's me.
Think about that. Like think about the bigger picture. Okay, but I made another step forward. I had another experience on my belt. I survived the audition. Maybe it didn't go so well. So next time I'm like feeling super motivated. Maybe I made a specifically stupid error or something. Next time you better believe like I'm practicing to not make that error again, you know?
Yeah.
So it's all like you take what you can control and you try to maximize your control over everything because of that. But what you can't control, it's hard. It's like once you can understand that worrying about it is mostly just a dispense of your energy that you won't really get back.
Yeah. I mean, again, there's always going to be factors outside of your control that you just like can't control at all.
You also,
and that's just how it is. But there's sometimes, again, it depends on the situation, but sometimes you can control your own mentality towards something. If you're in a really bad place, though, that's not an option for you most of the time. And I'm not saying that you should just try to do that because it probably won't work. But in that case, you need to get professional help so that hopefully you can get to the point where you don't have that state. I know you have to dip at some point, so you can always just get up. But I can keep going through the question.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, wait. Never mind. We might not be going through questions anymore because someone just knocked on that door. Oh, yeah. It might start at 6:15. Maybe we won't be getting to the other questions. Are they still out there? I'm scared, Vinny.
I don't know. Whoever it was last.
Okay. Well, I'll keep going through the questions then.
I'm gonna formally say goodbye.
Yeah, just lock the door and close it. And if I randomly have to leave during this podcast, you'll know why. We stole a classroom because we're in the music building, and practice rooms. There's always a horn player next to you that you can hear. So it's kind of hard to find space. So that was that question. Yeah, some of you guys sent questions about just preparing. Someone asked me how many hours one person should spend sight reading to make sure you nail that part. I mean, to a certain extent, and this happens to me with every audition, there's always something that I don't like that's going on with the audition, or I feel like I'm really lacking. I don't know. I mean, with that, it's like I can't necessarily say that or like guarantee that you are going to nail it, just because you never know what they're going to put down in front of you. So just honestly, I just think it's something that you have to like work on over time. And with me, with auditions too, especially like the soloing sections, I'm always just like, oh, this needs to like be better. But you also have to kind of take into account where you are personally too with your own playing ability, and know that you're not going to get somewhere magically overnight or over like a month's time. I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain. I might not be doing a good job. So sorry if I sound like a jerk or something like that, because that's definitely not the intent. I guess it just means like it's like if you really want to improve on sight reading, then I guess you should like make it part of your like practice habits, you know, like for like the whole year, or just like every time you like practice, like do some sight reading, because that's like the best way to like get better at it. Like I don't practice sight reading enough at all, you know. In Jazzland, everyone always gets really caught up with getting better at soloing, which is a good thing to do. But then you realize all the other parts of your playing that you've been neglecting. Like when I do audition stuff, I'm like aware of the fact that I've just been neglecting like working on like comping, and that's like a really weak part of my playing. So, you know, but I also like accepted like going into that, like, you know, even with like a month's time or whatever, like I probably won't be able to like fix that aspect of my playing to like where I want it to be, you know. So it's just something you have to like work on over time, and try to like just balance things out, which again, it might not be the answer that you're precisely looking for. I always just, at least with sight reading, because again, you know, I flake on it too during the school year, and like regularly I rely on ensembles to work on the music, that kind of thing. I just try to like run through it a little bit, and I try not to like get overwhelmed, you know, always think of the basics and you're like subdividing and stuff. So yeah, that's my recommendation. Sorry if it didn't come off properly. I don't have Vinny here anymore to tell me if I'm coming off the wrong way. So that's my answer for that one. This was another more music world thing, which I don't think I'm necessarily qualified to answer. Are there any differences between auditions in school versus outside of school? I don't think I'm qualified to answer that. There's other people, or like really actual professionals, who I think could. For me personally, I've never had an audition outside of school. All the gigs that I've done have been because I've had friends that have hit me up, or they recommended me to other people, who were like looking for subs because they liked my playing, or they trusted me, or I was the only one available and they really needed a sub. Because that can definitely be a thing, you know. Nothing wrong with that either. So that's kind of my thing with that, and why I can't really give a good response on it, because most of the time it's just networking, or like trying to find your own stuff, or like hustle. I think it might be different for maybe like more classical players, or like stuff with musicals maybe. Again, I'm really not the best person to say. So all of that, it's just like networking and being tight with people, and having someone ask you to fill for them on a gig, you know, or getting your own stuff. At least for me specifically. Vinny could actually probably answer that, but he's not here anymore. He'd probably know better than me. And then we had one more question, and if you guys have commented on this, I'm sorry if I've missed it. Vinny got us trapped on Nate Kenley's comment, so I can't escape from the computer option, and my phone started buffering. So I don't really know how the updating stuff is working at the moment. So if you have commented, I'll probably take a look at it post-stream. So again, make sure to comment, tell us what you think. Be nice, but you can tell me if you think we're completely wrong on everything. I won't be offended, because I tell myself I'm completely wrong on everything all the time. So this was again from somebody else, one of my friends who I like a lot now, good person. And his was more along the mental health stuff. So his comment was, I like this topic. Well, I think the biggest thing, also his is a little bit longer, but I like it. I think the biggest thing with auditions are nerves, and how they can hinder your performance, and just that awful feeling you get when you leave an audition. And in some cases, your performance was a lot worse than anything you've done in a practice room. Believe me, everyone who's a musician who has played, like we've all experienced that. I've royally messed up things before, where I was just like, why did I do that? Like, why did that happen? Part of that is just like doing it again and again and again, so that hopefully if it's like a nerves thing, eventually that kind of goes away. And as Vinny was saying before, sometimes things just happen on tunes. but that can also be how you get better too, or get better at hearing things, you know. And then you said that feeling stayed with me for a long time. Yeah. Another thing that kind of gets to me is the competition. Sometimes you'll hear the person going after before you in the practice room, and you're just sitting there analyzing their playing, trying to see if you're better or worse than them. I'll get back to that, but I'll read the rest of your stuff first. Funny story though, while I was in the practice room for my Elmhurst audition, I heard a ridiculously good drum set player just going crazy on the kit, and I was so set in believing that I wasn't going to get in, especially auditioning after this person. Luckily, it turned out to be, I'm not going to say, well, I guess I said kit, so that kind of implies a drummer. I don't know, I'm trying to be an anonymous guy. It's not working that well, I suppose. Luckily, it turned out to be Bob Rummage just messing around on the kit, lol. So yeah, that's definitely a thing. I mean, I mentioned that before. Chris Conway is just killing it all the time. If you watch this for some reason, I want to hear you at those jam sessions. I keep telling you to come with me too. I mean, it's the same thing with me as a freshman, like hearing those guys play. Like, it's so good, you know. But it's hard for me to say, like, just don't compare yourself to other people, because I do that all the time. But I think you can kind of control the environment a little bit. Like, we're very lucky here at Elmhurst because the guitar department, I think, personally is super cool. Like, I love all of our guitar people here just because of how supportive we are of each other. Like, I know Cole's in like the top jazz band, and Parker's like a super good player. So me and Parker were both doing callbacks together, and Cole was there too because we were just kind of sitting in with the top jazz band. And I remember one of the comments a lot of the horn players told us afterwards. They were just like, we loved like the camaraderie between you three. Like we were cheering each other on, like fist bumps, high fives, compliments, pep talks, like during said audition, you know. So like everyone was like witnessing this, you know, us being bros and stuff. So it depends on the mentality. You don't always get that everywhere you go, but for us specifically, I think we've worked really hard for it, and it's a good type of competition because we all push each other to like get better, you know. When you see like your bros shedding super hard and they sound great, and you're like, oh, I can't fall behind them, but you know, you're also both like mutually like really supportive of each other, you know. Because I love both Cole and Parker, and I'm so happy because they're both really good players, and both of them have always been supportive of me. So yeah, that's kind of like, I guess, my comment with that, you know. It doesn't always work out, but I think at Elmhurst at least we're super lucky just with all of that. And it's harder in school too because of all like the rankings and, you know, stuff like that. But I do believe like you can get like that community if you want it. The flip side though too is like, if you're one of like the more experienced people, then you should always be really supportive to like other players, or if like they're new too. I try to be with freshmen and stuff like that, and like make them feel like super welcome, because again, like, your playing ability isn't what your self-worth is, you know. And I think people are always really impressed by the people that just like work really hard and like push themselves, you know. So yeah, that's kind of my thing. Just be a cool person. You know, be social with people and like talk. Again, it's hard not to compare yourself to other people, and to a certain extent, like Vinny was saying, it can be good. Like, competition is good, and it makes you like work harder. Which again, like, I'm well aware of the fact that, you know, that I'm lucky to have like a very competitive guitar department here, just because it's pushed me to like become better than I would have been if I was like the only guitar player somewhere. I probably would have like shirked off things a lot more. I want to touch on anything. I always lose my train of thought. Take some water while I think about it a little bit, if there's anything I want to add on that point. Well, it's not coming back to me what I was going to say. So I don't think I can go down that route anymore. Yeah, you know. Yeah, you know, just, I wouldn't have, oh, I remember what I was going to say. at the end of 4 years, I didn't think that the group that I would want to be in the most is like the top electric guitar ensemble. Not a thing you generally I'd ever think would come out of my mouth after going to Elmhurst, that I'd be like, that's the group I want to be in. It's the music too, though, like the fusion and like just really wanting to dig into that and acknowledging, that it's unlike anything you've ever done before. So, things change. But yeah, try not to compare yourself to other people. It's hard. It will probably always happen, but no, that's not like what your self-worth is, And if they're your friends and they're cool, we all just like want to help each other out, we should all just be supportive of each other. There might be a point where there's like people who are like mean or like not the best people, but I don't know. I guess like don't think about them as much, They're not like your friends. And if your friends trust in your friends' opinions of you, your musician buddies that say you sound good or that you really improved, and trust in your teachers' perspectives too when they say that you sound really good. I have a tendency to dismiss people's compliments, but sometimes, especially with like the videos too that I was like posting for that combo stuff, like I've dismissed a lot of people's positive remarks about that, just because I hate recording myself and hearing like recordings of myself. I don't want to hear it. But I don't know, just like, just take it in, trust in their opinions and that them taking the time to like bring it up and tell you that you sounded good, like that means something. So like trust in them, and support other people too when you think someone sounds really good. I try to, just always be mindful of that because we all, as music people, we all need support. That was something Frank Portalese always told us too, and just with anything else too. I know I didn't do as much of non-music stuff. Sorry, non-music majors. But for some of you guys, I don't know if any of you joined up that are in my business classes. I just always try to tell people that they do a good job of like presenting and just like anything, that like puts them out there because they're putting themselves out there. And I think there's always like good things you can take away from like just like anything. So yeah, if you think someone does like a good job, like don't be afraid to like just like tell them that, because everyone needs to hear it because a lot of people are usually in a really negative headspace, I think. So yeah, this has been a good discussion. We are over an hour. I think this might be the first one we've done. I know it says 2 for here, but we've done these in the past. I don't think there's really there's always so much to touch on with these. I guess my own side, I'll kind of comment to one of Vinny's things. Well, actually, no, I won't. I'm going to bring it up in a later podcast because it goes along with a different topic. So that's it for this one. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I say all the time. Need to stop. Don't think there's, I can't really check your guys' comments at all. I got some of your guys' comments. Some new ones appeared. That's good. So again, comment on this post stream. Let me know what you think. Tell me in person. I've had a lot of people tell me this stuff really supports them. Tell me that so I keep doing it. Sometimes I need that good old encouragement to keep doing these and be productive and stuff. Sorry, this is, since I'm watching the delayed video, technically, I'm watching what has happened in my past, but it's your present or future. So yeah, just some other comments that I'll kind of address a little bit. Adam, I like that you caught my cookie reference. We're struggle cookie bus together, so hopefully we get through that and eat healthier and stop consuming sugar all the time. And Isaiah, thank you for commenting too and being supportive of all this. This goes back to what I was kind of saying about preparing. True, it's good to prepare for the audition, but your growth on your musical journey happens over the course of months and years. You can't learn to sight read overnight. So yeah, that's important, especially with auditions and preparing. to a certain extent, because I get this way with soloing a lot and like blowing or like jam sessions. I'm always like, oh, it needs to be like at like, you know, whatever like your opinion is of like the highest level. But you also have to be aware of the fact that you're playing, if you're practicing, like it has made improvements, but so you also have to be satisfied with that when you play and when you solo and when you sight read, if you've been working on it, you know, and just be satisfied with your current growth, and that if you keep working, you'll continue to grow. So yeah, that's kind of what I have to say with that. I think that's everything. Again, please comment. You can email me. I don't really want to read off this email. Maybe I'll put it in a link down below or something. You can email me. You can message me. You can tell me in person. I need you guys to tell me that you like this stuff. Please comment your opinions. We love that. I love it. If you're a professor or a professional person and, I don't know, this strikes you, even if we don't talk at all, I like hearing from you guys, you know, and your opinions, especially if you kind of care about this stuff too. And it's something that you want to support, because I think I'm all about bringing people together in a community, a supportive family, competitive, loving community. You know, it's all great stuff. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Tell Vinny he did a good job too. He's not here. Be super supportive up to him as well. My co-hosts need encouragement just as much as I do, I think. Good luck for everyone else who's got all their stuff left for this week to do. I'm off because I have no classes on Friday besides group meetings and work, and I don't gotta do anything till next Tuesday, so that's pretty awesome for me. So enjoy your weekend. Eat healthy. Cookies don't count as healthy, so try to eat healthy and cut back on the sugar. Sleep, hydrate, exercise, practice all night. Do whatever you need to do to be happy, and I will see you all later.